Hello, my name is Michelle, and you're listening to Profit is a Choice. On the podcast today, I have Courtney Bramlett. She's with me. She is the owner of the Good Sower, and she also does marketing and operations for Scarlet Thread. And we're going to talk about alignment of resources. Like, how are you putting your time, effort, and energy into the things that matter most in your company that are going to get you to the next place? And so I hope you are ready. It's going to be a fun and an exciting conversation. Every day, empowered entrepreneurs are taking ownership of their company financial health and enjoying the rewards of reduced stress and more creativity. With my background as a financial software developer, owner of multiple businesses in the interior design industry, educator, and speaker, I coach women in the interior design industry to increase their profits, regain ownership of their bottom line, and to have fun again in their business. Welcome to Profit is a Choice. Hey, Courtney, I'm so excited to have you back on the podcast to chat today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So we are going to talk. You and I have had lots of conversations about this privately, and we finally were like, we just need to get on here and talk about this because we're seeing it pop up in so many places, either in your marketing business one-to-one, with your clients. We're seeing it with my clients showing up a lot, not only in our conversations, but we're also seeing it in the chatter and the questions that come in and, outside people that are having conversations. And so what we're going to talk about today, we talk a lot on this podcast about strategy, and we talk about that financial alignment with it. But we're really going to talk about, in a broader term, not only financial alignment with strategy, but financial and resource alignment with strategy. And I know that you've seen this in your own personal business, but certainly in the business that you support with me.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, I've been doing marketing and sales in some form for quite some time, but when you move into the small business world, you go from corporate where you're kind of given a budget and you don't really get to see much of how that connects to the overall financial health of the business. But for small business owners, it's that financial piece, that profit first mindset that you always talk about is so important, because if not, these resources that you want to invest in all of a sudden become a huge stressor, because you've thought that that was something that you wanted to invest in, and in 2 months you can't afford it anymore, and it's just this huge stress and you're not making as much as you want. So just the importance of that business and financial strategy as the foundation. I've just really seen that, like you said, in my own business, using that mindset. But then also when people come to me they want marketing support, they know what they want, but a lot of times they have not saved for that type of investment, and the longevity of what that investment is going to take and need in terms of planning.
So let's kind of set the stage for kind of, as they would say, create a container around the conversation a little bit. So the container that we're looking at is, it's always great to start with a strategic plan, right? Which is just a plan that says, here is the strategy of where we're trying to go as a company. This is what we're trying to attain. This is what we're trying to do. This is what we hope to accomplish over the next whatever period of time. Let's say 1 year, okay? Here's the strategy. In other words, I'm not just showing up every day, taking what comes and hoping it all works out in the wash. I am actively and intentionally moving towards a target that I have set and that I have noted and that the team is aware of, right? So there is a clear bullseye in front of me for the end of my year that I am trying to reach and attain. That's the starting point. Now, within that strategy, we always look at a couple of different areas. We look at HR, our people. We look at operations. How are we doing both the internal work to satisfy the client, but also the operations of how are we running the company, kind of that back office or back end support that we talk about. And we're talking about marketing, which could also include, let's call it PR and the sales machine, that kind of investment to get new blood, new clients into the business. Those are the three main areas. The fourth main area is financials. And so there's certainly a financial component, but the financial component hits all of those three areas, right? Your operations, your people, and your marketing. Okay. And so, what we're talking about today, some of the areas that we want to dive into within this conversation is how do we create this bullseye, if you will, this strategy. This is what I'm trying to accomplish over the next year. And I want to stay so focused. We've talked about this radical focus. How do I stay so focused that I take not just the money, but the resources and the priority, and I aim it towards the thing that matters most? So, I'm going to tell you, it's interesting. At church on Sunday, our pastor was talking about lighthouses, and he was talking about how lighthouses work and how they were like, I don't even remember the years, so I don't have all the details, but you guys can go look up lighthouses. But he was talking about, like, I don't know, making the like 17 or 1800s when they were trying to do it. Well, if you take one light and you think about when we've had light here, right? And you put it in an area, it so spreads out that the light kind of dissipates over a space and you don't see it. But somebody learned how to cut the glass in such a way that as it spins around the light, it focuses all the light into one point so that it goes farther and deeper and is brighter, so that as it spins around, the light is aimed towards one thing versus being dissipated over a large amount of space. Well, that hit me. I mean, certainly he was talking about it in one way, but just the idea of a lighthouse and how the light is refracted and how it's focused. I mean, that is what we're trying to do, is take all of that energy and resource, all that light, if you will, that energy within the business, so that we can focus it to get to one place, as opposed to having it dissipate by a bunch of random needs for money or resources that at the end of the day, we don't get anywhere. Okay. Yep. So by that, we're looking at a couple of things. The first I would say is, if we were to go down that path, is where do we spend our money?
Yep.
Okay.
The most important question.
Where do we spend our time? Let's talk about time and money, because those are the two, I would say, big active resources that we have, which is why we tell everybody, document all of your time and document where your money goes.
Yeah. So that's a great point too. The time, like, if you can early on in your business, if you can learn how to manage your time well to your strategy, then when you have the financial piece to start investing, it should be more second nature to know where to invest that money, because you've been investing your time in those important areas that tie to your strategy.
Okay, so one of the things that we did at the strategic event that we held back in September of last year is we had them document, where are you spending your time and where are you spending your money. We went into their P&L and we had them look at every line item on the P&L and tie it to one of these areas of the company. Every line on that P&L should tie to your marketing, your HR, your operations. It's going to tie to something that is happening. And then we ask them to look at how they spent their time, that resource. And then we asked, what's getting done, what's not getting done, what's being missed, and how do we take these two resources and divert them to the area that needs attention? And so really, at the end of the day, we need to work on all these areas.
Yeah,
so
we have to.
What are your thoughts on prioritizing, whether it's time or money, over when you're looking at these three areas: marketing, HR, and operations?
Yeah, well, you said something the other day in one of your coaching calls, and it's like, do my actions align with the future state, that strategic vision that I've put in place? And I think that is step number one. Like, are my task and the time that I'm spending during the day, do they get me closer to that future state that I've defined? And we've talked about this. Like, one of the easiest ways to do that is, for me, is I say, what do I want to say about my business in 12 months? Like, December of 2026, what do I want to be able to say about my business, and what do I want people to be able to say about my business? So what's that future state? And you will quickly find the time that you have been spending that is not tying to that future state. You always, anytime I do that exercise, I find areas where I'm like, this is not getting me anywhere closer to that future state. And then money too. You have extra financial resources. You've been saving for that next investment. It's also that future state, because that changes. We talked about this right before we started. You can be in a major period of growth, or you could be in a period where I just need to sustain where I'm at right now to get my head underwater. It's okay to have that as part of your strategic vision. It doesn't always have to be this grand, huge thing. So I think that vision, and then looking at alignment there. If you're spending a ton of money on marketing, but you're in sustain mode, there's probably some misalignment in that budget spend, that allocation, instead of focusing maybe more on how do we just be 5% better than the next with automations, operations, things like that, while we're in this sustain mode. So there might be some misalignment in that spend. So I think it always ties back to that strategic vision that you put in place. Like, it's such a good practice, even every day, like your task list, like which one of these tasks do I need to kick down the road because it's not getting me anywhere closer to that 12-month, 24-month vision that I've put in place. I think it's so important.
You're right. And I was thinking when you said that, even about I'm a Fix This Next certified coach, which is, what do we fix next in the business? And if you think about it in that hierarchy, or that, kind of pyramid that it talks about, the very first thing is sales. So if we're not bringing sales in the door, we don't have lifeblood, for the company. It doesn't matter what great legacy you have. It doesn't matter how great your processes are. There's nobody there to use the processes. And so it's really looking at, do we have sales in place? Are we profitable? And then working on the order and the impact and the legacy.
Yep.
So I would say, if you're looking at your strategic plan, and part of it is this huge growth cycle, I would suggest this first before you go dump all of your time, money, and energy into working on the marketing and the sales. Make sure you can satisfy the sale when it comes in the door. I've mentioned this before, but back in the days when, oh gosh, what is the coupon place where you can buy them online really cheap? You can buy stuff. I'm trying to think of what it's called.
Groupon, or is it?
Yeah, it was Groupon.
Yeah.
Okay. So years ago, when Groupon was first coming out, they sold where you could go get a manicure and a pedicure for like $25. Okay. Well, they didn't, back in the day, they didn't have it where it was like over a certain amount of time and only 10 available to sell. So they didn't limit, the business did not put any limits around it. Well, you and I both know a manicure and a pedicure can be anywhere from, probably around $100. You're almost $50 each, just on the low end, the entry level of whatever. You're at about $100. So to get that back in the day for $25, $30, you can imagine how they sold. It was a reputable firm, a reputable company. Well, what happened was it sold so many that then the company could not service the sale. They didn't have the operations and they didn't have the people. So then what they had to do was they had to go higher. They had to extend their business hours and extend what was going to happen so that they can get in. And now they're moving people in and out, which means their service brand went down. The brand that they were trying to present to get people in the door, they were moving them through like cattle to such a degree that people didn't have the experience that they wanted them to have. All right. Well, once they satisfied all of that, nobody bought again. Because number one, why would they? When they got it for such a big discount. But number two, the experience wasn't what they wanted it to be because their operations and their HR weren't in alignment. And then they had to go fire everybody because they didn't need them because the people weren't there. Well, that's the feast or famine that we don't want to get into. That's what I hear most people say when they're like, I'm afraid to hire because what if I won't need them in 6 months? And so there really is a balancing act between the work we have in-house, the sales process, the people that we have to serve that sale. So before we go just pounce on our crazy amount of marketing, we need to know that if it comes in, if it converts, can we fulfill the sale? If not, we need to make sure it may not be perfect. I'm not talking about spend 3 years on operations. We've got to at least satisfy the portion of sales that is client facing so that when we go tell them to come, we're ready. It is the equivalent. If we don't, and we don't think about this in online business, I know you see it all the time, probably even more than I do on the marketing front. But it would be like putting up a grand opening sign for a walk-in store and not having anything on the shelves, or having everything on the shelves but no point of sale service, and we don't know how to sell it to them. We're like getting out a paper book and writing down a ledger to sell. We would never do that if we had to physically have the building and bring them in. So when we are looking at our online businesses, there does have to be this readiness component before we then move into sales. And so part of that strategy is asking those tough questions. Are we able to support, and how many clients can we support? Do we have a natural amount of them coming in? Or is that where we need to spend our money? Like, are we able to satisfy the sale? We just need the people? Or if we've got people coming and we can't satisfy the sale, because one's going to lead me to spend my money and resources at marketing, the other's going to lead me on people and operations.
Yeah, that's such an interesting, I never thought about that from the storefront perspective, but the fix it next methodology is really neat because I'm sure you think about your business too when you first started and you kind of go through those steps in your, like, first year I just was doing this, and then year 2 I was like, oh gosh, I've got to solve this problem, and then year 3 I got to solve this problem, and how important that first step is, like validation of what you're selling, like being able to sell it. Like I think that is important too before you go dump a bunch of money into some type of investment. Like, can I sell this on my own as the business owner? I think that is an important piece to tie in for sure. And then that fix it next it can really help you understand where to go next in your business based on the problem that you're dealing with, for sure.
And that entrepreneurial journey that you and I've talked about, where are you on the journey? What are you trying to attain? And where do we focus these resources? Because you and I've talked about this. There's always something to work on. There's always something to do, even if we're maintaining, whether we're growing, whether we're sustaining, whatever it is, there's always something to do. And most of us, as high achieving entrepreneurs, even if there's nothing to do, we will find something to do. We will come up with something that needs to be reworked or redone, it's just part of who we are and how we work. And so really looking at the list and parsing it down, like where you asked the question a minute ago, what's getting me closer or not getting I like to go, what can I just take off the list and it's not going to be missed? What can just, like I've mentioned, my list is like rabbits and has babies at night. And when I wake up in the morning, I got a longer list than I went to bed with. So I have to be able to look at it and say, what can come off the list? What can come off the list? Or what can be pushed or delegated or automated? What can be just moved so that I can focus. Remember that light beam from the lighthouse. How do I focus it in the area that I need to focus it? Because my best time and best energy needs to be spent on attaining, at the end of the day, what's most important.
Yeah, 100%. And when you can get rid of that list and all of those things that you think you've got to focus your time on, and you really minimize that, that's when you start to see real impact and change in your business, for sure. I heard someone say this a couple weeks ago, and we like to throw that word burnout, out a lot. And I think she said burnout is really it's not because you're working 80 hours, it's because you're working on 100 things and you don't know where to focus. And none of those 100 things are ever getting done, which is a really tough place to be in as a business owner, when you're just like, nothing feels like it's getting done because you're working on processes over here, you get them to like 60%, and then you have a marketing agency, but you can't even give them the time of day for their work to be good. You've hired 2 team members that you don't even have the time to train because you're working on these 10 other things, and then all of a sudden your return on investment isn't non-existent in any of these areas: operations, HR, marketing, because they're too spread out. We hear that all the time, especially with hiring. Well, I don't have the time to hire them, or they're not, like you said earlier, it's been 2 months and they're not doing what I need them to do. We have to reflect back on that as the business owner, and that can be hard sometimes. And that's where it all comes back. Like, before we make those decisions to invest our resources in certain areas, like, we need to be prepared and ready and dialed in on, I know exactly why I need to hire 2 team members. I know exactly what my outcome's going to be. I know exactly how I need to train them. And in 12 months, I can estimate that they're going to bring me X amount more money because I can build them out. Like, that is part of being strategic about financial alignment.
So one of the things that you talked about in that comment was about the preparation piece. And let's say that we've done the work, we've created the strategy, and we know in the strategy, these are the areas of my company that need the most time and attention. Okay. Well, now there's this prep work that we have to do, just like you were describing with a new hire. You can't just hire them and think it's going to work out. You're hiring them, and the prep work that's done before you ever bring them. We talk about it in Scarlet Thread Consulting in our Aim with Intent. We talk about it as if you're inviting them to be a guest in your home. And what would you do when you got the room ready for a guest to come? You'd have their favorite foods. You'd have their beds made up. You'd have towels laid out. Their bathroom would be prepared. Like, you're working to prepare a space for them to come into. Well, the same holds true in business. We want to make sure they've got a desk to sit at. Do they have a computer? Do they have a job description? Do they have 30, 60, 90-day goals? Do they have a mentor or a colleague that they can ask questions so that everyone doesn't have to go through the owner? Do they have SOPs? Do they have educational guides? We are really focused on, have we educated them? Have we equipped them? Have we set expectations? Have we empowered them and encouraged them? We talked about the trust factor. You can't just trust them at a level 10 when you hire them. The trust might be at 2 or 3, and then they earn their way up the trust scale to a point that you can actually trust them to get the work done without having to repeatedly watch over them. The same is true if you're hiring marketing. We're preparing, and even in the hiring of people, let's go back to that for a second. I usually say you want to have 3 to 6 months of that salary saved, because that's giving you that runway for them to come on board, learn what's happening, and be able to be productive in their job. It is not uncommon for them not to be revenue generating or supportive enough for you to be additionally revenue generating within the first 3 months. They're just figuring it out. And if we don't give ourselves that financial runway to allow that to happen, then we are putting undue pressure on them and on ourselves for something that probably wasn't going to be accomplished anyway. And now we just added to our stress. If we move that into a marketing conversation, right, or it could be in an operational conversation, same holds true. And you kind of alluded to it a minute ago. If we have not saved up and prepared for a marketing investment, it's not like we can just throw some Instagram content out there 1 month and then expect that we've got 10 new projects coming in the door. Marketing is a long game, and it is a consistent game, which means you don't stop. You keep going in some way. But we were talking about kind of that runway, that ramp up, and that when we're hiring somebody, having 3 to 6 months of salary, and then really anticipating what it's going to take to get them productive. And then we were talking about, even in marketing, Courtney, it's the same kind of thing. It's not like you do it once and then you're done. And it's a long-term consistent game is what we were chatting about. So talk a little bit about what that investment looks like in marketing and how the results come about, because it's just not a quick turnaround.
No, it's not. And, especially I was thinking about this the other day, depending on the industry you're in, like interior design, think of you've invested in marketing for a 12-month period. If you land two full renovation projects or ground up builds, I mean, it'd be worth it if you are willing to save up that 12 months, because you're going to have a huge return on investment just based on pricing and all of that stuff. You aren't just selling $100 little fidget off Amazon. You are selling a massive deliverable. So you do need to be able to invest in that 12 months, because also, I don't know about anyone listening, but if you're targeting someone and asking them to spend, let's say, at the more luxury end, $1 million plus on just design, they're not going to make that decision in a 1 month turnaround. They see a couple posts and they feel confident giving you that $1 million to design their home. One of my clients that I work with, who's an interior designer, she just closed somebody that's been watching her marketing for well over a year. So that investment was a 12-month investment to get that one person even to reach out. So we have to understand the customer life cycle. How long does it actually take someone to make a decision? But being able to save up for 6+ months for marketing is going to make a big deal. And not only just financial, your time too. A good marketing partner is going to need your attention, and they're going to need time to understand your voice and your expertise. It's the same thing when you hire someone, right? Like, you can't have a trust level of 10 on day one. You shouldn't do that with an agency either, because they need the time to understand who you are. So, and people think of marketing as like the silver bullet. And really, depending on what marketing you're investing in, you're really looking more at awareness, not so much full-blown revenue driving. A marketing investment is meant to bring you qualified leads, but from there, that's kind of where it cuts off marketing and goes more into the sales. But being able to have that money saved up and let marketing run for a longer time is going to be huge in terms of return on investment, because we see this all the time. People think they're ready, and within 6 months they're stressed to the nine because they have not gotten any new clients in those 6 weeks, and they didn't save any more than 2 months of that for that marketing investment. And now they're having to scramble and, well, where is this going to come from out of my budget? Instead of just having that saved up or planned. We talked about this too. There's going to be moments in your business where you might not take as much out from your own owner's perspective to invest back in the business and things like this. So being more prepared, making that decision earlier on where the investment's going to be, is going to make you more comfortable and confident, as that investment you keep investing that amount of money over a length of time, for sure, because it's not fun. And I think a lot of people are burnt out on outsourcing or marketing or anything really, because they're expecting that quick one and done. I just need to go in for a couple weeks and I'll get a new client and I'll be good to go. Or same with coaching, an investment like that. It's a longevity game. So being prepared financially allows you to really lean into that investment more too.
It's interesting. I think that we go through cycles of how people purchase. You and I have talked about, like, back in 2020, there were certain things that we could offer that people bought quickly. And then when you move forward, people buy a little bit more. I don't want to say thoughtfully, because I don't want to say that they weren't thoughtful, but the buying life cycle is longer. It's not as quick and not as fast and not as hurried for a multitude of reasons. And you can see that in all kinds of markets. The housing market, there are times where it's hot and there are times where it's cold. And so, certainly maybe we've had opportunities that we could post one time and get somebody because it hit just the right person at the right time. Those can happen, but they are very, very, very rare. And I love how you called it a marketing partner. And we talk about often having, again, the time and the money. Even if you hire a marketing partner, there's got to be an upfront investment of time to make certain that that partner fully understands the brand, fully understands the strategy, understands the voice, all of the things that they need to do to speak your language to your people, to create that awareness and to create that kind of drawback to the website so that they will reach out. We're not giving them that time. And think about this, where's the time coming from? Well, the time is coming from other activities that I would have done. So I've now got to budget time on my calendar to be able to invest, to give them the tools and resources that they need, the knowledge about my company to present it. And because it's not going to come quickly and it's an upfront investment for hopefully a payoff downstream, that money's got to come from somewhere. To your point, it either has to be sitting in net profit or in a savings account because I've already earned the money from past sales, or I've got to be able to make the money every month to reinvest back in marketing so that it now can become a line item on the P&L. And often what we see is we have no money, but we know we need to market. Well, people aren't just going to market for you for free. They're not going to just come work for you from an HR perspective for free. They're not going to come in and build your operations for free. So there are investments that need to be made, whether it's you're taking out a business loan to start or to enhance the operations of your business to allow you to generate more, or it's that putting the money back in and not taking all the money out. What also happens though, Courtney, is you mentioned it earlier and we've talked about it before. It's not a straight line. We're not starting our business and then build, 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 build. We've talked about moments of maintaining and sustaining. And so there may be times that the business allows us to bring home more money, whether it's through payroll or draws and distributions. And then there are other times where the goals that we have in the business require more cash. And we make that intentional business decision to reduce what we're bringing home, to put back in, to elevate us to the next level, to then be able to take more out again. So it's a conscious decision that we're making. And I'll tell you what I've also seen is I've seen business owners get to the point where the business is paying them well. They want to move to the next level, but they're not willing to reinvest what it takes to move to the next level. So they've gotten so comfortable, or they've built their personal life to use every ounce that the business can provide, that honestly, there's now nothing else to invest. Like I've seen that on my side, and I know you have too. Then they're like, well, we want to move to the next level. And I'm like, well, the same way that you put the money in and the time in to get here, you got to put it in to get there. It doesn't just automatically come. And so I get often shocked, not shocked, I guess perplexed is a good word. I get perplexed by business owners who are making a good salary and distributions. I mean, I've had some bringing in $300,000 a year, wanting to get to the next level, but not willing to invest and telling me that they didn't have any money and where it was coming from. And I'm sitting here thinking, you're bringing in $300,000 to your home. If you want to build the business, you got to leave some in the business for it to build. You can't take everything out of the business and then expect the business to survive and thrive. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. And it's that important mind shift where it's like, yes, it is your business. Yes, you own the business, but you still have to separate yourself from your financials personally should be different than the business financials. You know, if you want to hire a marketing agency or if you want to go hire someone to write your SOPs for you, it shouldn't feel like a personal toll. Like I have to go pay for a market. It should be like, my business is going to go pay for a marketing agency because I have prepared and I have left money there in the business for that. And I think that shift alone totally changes. I mean, I think that shift specifically is a big reason why such small amount of people make it over that $1 million mark. I mean, I think the last time I looked, only maybe 8 to 9% of businesses ever make it over the $1 million a year revenue mark. And just so strategically thought out moves are super important.
Is creating the strategy, right? Here are the goals that I'm trying to reach for the next year. And then actually asking, what is my time investment for each of these goals? And what is the financial investment that I'm willing to allocate for each of these goals? Like being so conscious that we're saying, I'm going to give it this amount of time and this amount of money to give it the chance to actually come to fruition.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes the biggest difference.
It is. And it's just not what we do. I don't know why. Sometimes we just kind of think it's going to magically happen because we stated it. And I know we have a better chance of it happening because we set the goal. But it's kind of like saying, I'm going to run a marathon and not practicing. Do we think we're just going to get out there on the day of and do the 26, whatever, and think it's going to be all good? Well, we're going to be struggling if we're out there doing that. And so, it's really about setting an intention and then being intentional in the process of the achievement so that you can, and giving it just what it needs to make it happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it really ties back to, it is a commitment to learn how to like strategically think about these decisions, especially like, I think business owners have to ask themselves the question, what is really like my 20-year future state? Because I think people forget, like, this is a long haul of commitments and strategic decision making. Like, this isn't just a 3-year and I'm here and I've made it. It's a never ending strategic process of resource allocation, strategic building, hiring. Like it never stops, because really, if you aren't growing, consistently, what do they say? If you aren't growing, you're probably slowly getting stagnant and you're going to slowly start to decline. And that's a huge commitment. And I think that's a question every business owner has to ask themselves at some point. What do I really want this business to be, in the long haul?
What's the long game here, right?
Yeah, because I think that changes. If you don't want to have, this massive business in 10 years, like that will radically change the way you run your business today, for sure.
And how you invest those resources.
Yeah.
I love the book. You and I've talked about it 1,000 times, but Atomic Habits, because really, it's this whole, and there's so many other books similar to it, but the idea is to also focus on the process, not just focusing on the end result. And so all of that together is what gets us there. If we think that we're just in this for the next 5 years to do a few sprints, we're going to treat a 5 sprint years very different than I'm in this for the 20 to 25 year, game. And every year can build on the year before, because we're actually trying to attain something over 20 years versus 5 individual sprint years. And that's why you see people come in, sprint hard, run hard, make what they want and get out, versus they're building this more legacy and impact type business that they either want to sell, that they want to turn over to the next generation, these family type generational things. It's just building something with a bit more thought behind it than get in, get out. And so that opportunity to align your time, your effort, and your energy. I love the book 12-Week Year. And that's kind of it's one of the mindsets that I use. Traction does something similar, but it's really about setting aside, you and I've worked on this a lot, what is the first quarter, breaking your business into quarters, those 12 weeks, and looking at it as if that's the year, so that you can get everything accomplished that you need to in a very focused way for a very small amount of things, so that you are, to your point, finishing it, versus what you said at the beginning of the conversation, a bunch of open things that never gets done. You're just doing 100 things, but they never get completed. Focusing like the lighthouse on 2 or 3 really important things, getting them done, moving to the next 2 or 3 things, as opposed to a little all over the place.
Yeah, it's always going to be better that way.
So as we wrap up our conversation today, Is there anything else that you think we need to cover around this alignment of our resources with our strategy and thinking about the longer game and not this short game, the investment that it takes, the runway, just time for things to work and being able to invest the time and the money and the effort to allow it to happen, that preparedness. Is there anything else that you can think of that we haven't stated?
The biggest thing I would just want people to take away is, like, don't compare your pace of growth to other people. Like, it is okay to have a slower pace at growth, especially if you're being really smart with your financials and you want to save these resources, so your business can pay them without impacting your pay. That takes a little more time. So being okay with a slower process, we see this all the time. A business owner has 20 things I think have to get done in the next 2 months, but they haven't actually gotten anything done in the last 2 years. Imagine if you just did one thing a quarter, and got that done, and where you would be in 3 years compared to this, diluted effort. So I think just making sure you're kind of keeping your blinders on in terms of how you define growth in your business based off your vision. In your strategy, like, just be okay with your own pace of growth as you move through this journey of entrepreneurship.
I think to add to that, it's learning to listen and hear your own voice. On a podcast I did with somebody the other day, we were talking about how we're bombarded with so much information today. I mean, even my podcast, which of course is excellent, but you just, when you constantly are hearing everybody tell you what you should do, should do, should do, should do. And yes, we need to listen to that. And yes, we need to do best practices. I've said this on the podcast before. But when we spend so much time listening to other voices and we don't give any time to hear our own voice, then what happens is we can start to implement things that sound great and that work for other people on this speed racer kind of journey to accomplish things fast, 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 instead of that more steady, slow, intentional growth. And then we can implement things that honestly war and fight against each other. And so then, on one day we're marketing this way and next week we're marketing that way, and we're wondering why nothing's working. And it's because we're like losing our ever loving mind out, in our marketing. Nobody knows who we are because we don't know, because we keep grasping at the next idea. And so that's a whole nother podcast. But my gosh, the more that we can be really clear, this is where I want to, this is my bullseye. This might not be Courtney's, this might not be somebody else's, but this is my bullseye. This is what I'm trying to attain. And this is when I'm trying to attain it. And this is what I'm committing to put towards the effort to make it happen, right? The money, the time, the energy, all the things. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to listen to myself, and I'm going to provide space and time to think and to plan and to strategize and to do, which means we've got to create that margin in our life, not just Seal and I talked about this on the December podcast. We're not just creating a margin on the books financially. We got to create margin in our life to allow us to spend time thinking about the business, spend time with people, to spend time being inspired, to spend time doing other things. So I think as we are looking at the intentionality of the whole thing and wrapping it together, the more that we can stop and slow and listen, the more we'll be able to react.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And one thing I'll say just before we close it out, I was listening to this guy. He owns a huge venture capitalist, and he was talking about how a lot of small business owners think they have to do something radically different to make sales or stand out, or they have to come up with the next crazy idea, or the next big investment, whatever that is, to stand out in the market. And this venture capitalist, which, what they do is they go and pump cash into well-performing businesses. He said, we actually go and target business owners that are in a well-established market, something like interior design, but they're doing it 5% better than the next. So it's not really we try and overcomplicate things like crazy. And it's just like, how do we just be really good at what we're doing and efficient? And I think that, all ties back to this whole conversation.
Right. And as we say on the podcast all the time, profit doesn't happen by accident. I would say this success and meeting your goals, it also doesn't happen by accident. It happens because we're putting in time, effort, energy, and intention to making it.
Yeah. 100%.
Courtney, thank you so much. It's such a great conversation. I love going back and forth and just chatting about all the things. And what's so funny? I've been on every side of it too. Like, this isn't like conversations we're having telling other people what they ought not do. We've done some of it. It's easy to fall in the trap of doing some of these things and then almost having to pull yourself back out and go, wait a minute, I know better. I know that I'm getting what I'm going to call graspy. Go back to grassroots. Where do I need to focus? What do I need to do? It is literally a muscle that we are constantly trying to strengthen in our own businesses. And we see it highlighted when others come to us. And sometimes I think it's just a blind spot for us. We're just trying to do our best. Everybody's just trying to do their best.
Yeah.
But
what's next? Do your best. Yeah.
Just do what's coming, we get caught up in the game. And again, not being able to slow down and to hear and see our blind spots in these areas is really costing us profitability.
Yeah.
It's costing us meeting those goals that are going to get us to the next goals.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you for such a great conversation. I look forward to the next one.
Yep. See you, Michelle.
Bye.
Bye.
Courtney, thank you so much for joining. I always love our conversations, even with technical difficulties. It's fun just to go back and forth. If you are listening today and you're thinking, I need help creating some of these strategies and thinking about how to best spend my time and my money and my efforts, or I need to grow and I don't know what to do next. I'm stuck. I'm at the end of what I know. I don't know what I don't know, and I need help getting and going to the next place. Then please reach out and let us help you. You can find out more by going to scarletthreadconsulting.com. And on there, you can look at the Work With Me page. We have plenty of free downloads. Our goal is to help you create a strategy that aligns with where you want to go, and then to have your financial support the work of the company. We're really into you being paid and being paid well, and the company working for you. And so we have some awesome opportunities to work together in the Designer's Inner Circle. We have 8-week programs. We also have opportunities for CFO to go and strategy to go, and then one-to-one longer-term coaching if that's something that interests you. Again, you can find out more at scarletthreadconsulting.com. As always, choose to be profitable and to use your resources wisely, because profit doesn't happen by accident. Profit is a Choice is proud to be part of the designnetwork.org, where you can discover more design media reaching creative listeners. Thanks for listening, and stay creative and business minded.